Hello, and welcome to the 2013 Hundie Challenge. Today we're going to be discussing Movie Phone by Walker, Texas Ranger. Dee-doo-dee-doo-doo, dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-doo-doo, dee-doo-dee-doo-doo, dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-doo. Well, I'll tell you the truth, I didn't think a whole lot of this book. It wasn't terrible, it was a fast read. I've talked before about what I consider a fast read, so I won't go over all that again. I do appreciate when a book is a fast read, but I also like it to maybe hold together more than this one did. This is a story about a guy. He's called Jack sometimes, or Binks, I guess is his nickname. He's a moviegoer. He likes to go to the movies alone, which he considers to be a very bizarre thing. Maybe it is a little odd, and I gather it was certainly odd for the 60s. You know, I only go to a movie alone, once in a blue moon, if it's something I really want to see and nobody wants to see it with me. But he kind of perpetually does this. And the only other thing that's really going on in his life aside from watching movies is that he's a womanizer. He doesn't think a whole lot of women. Every time he gets a new secretary, he's kind of got a good job. He's like a banker or something like that, a real estate broker, something. And every time he gets a new secretary, he tries to bed them and that sort of thing. I gather that the underlying metaphor of him being a moviegoer, because he does at one point come out and say, he describes another character and he says he was a moviegoer too. He didn't go to the movies, but in this metaphor, this guy is also a moviegoer. So I guess what he thinks of is someone who cares so little about the world that the only thing that can really interest them is fiction. It seems like a very modern sort of malaise. I think we find that a lot more today. But, I think a lot of people can also, use fiction as a healthy escape without descending into the sort of cold, almost emotionless state of Binks in the book. So he doesn't, he kind of doesn't really care about anything. He occasionally shows affection towards his kids, and he, occasionally can be diverted when he's womanizing, but he never really is fully invested in the modern world. I guess this would have been more, this might have been more, controversial at the time it was written, but that's such a common thing nowadays to think about people getting lost in their own worlds, like the guy in Korea that died because he refused to go pee when he was playing World of Warcraft, or like that awful Tom Hanks movie, what was it called, Monsters and Mazes or something, where he lost his mind because he played Dungeons and Dragons too much. So maybe it's not as shocking of a concept today. One thing that did kind of bother me about this is it's set in New Orleans, whatever you want to call it. I think he at different points makes fun of the Yankees who call it New Orleans. What do they call it down there? Nolans, right? It takes place in New Orleans, Louisiana, and promptly does nothing with that. It could have been anywhere. It could have been Peoria. It could have been anywhere in the country. There was no reason. I mean, I'm not saying that just a regular story can't take place in New Orleans, but why would you have such a exciting, kind of unusual backdrop and do nothing with it? They mention Mardi Gras and they're out of town for Mardi Gras and they're like, boy, the traffic was hard getting back into town because it was Mardi Gras, and that's it. He mentions somebody getting a po' boy. I felt like it was kind of a wasted opportunity. It made me want to read A Confederacy of Dunces, which I have heard about, and I don't think is on this list, thanks to Lot Modern Library, but I have heard is a far superior book. that is in New Orleans and actually, makes hay out of that backdrop. I can't say that I would wholeheartedly recommend that you read this, but like with all of these things, it's just my personal opinion. Your mileage may vary. It certainly wasn't a terrible book, certainly was an easy read, not very confusing. I just didn't feel like there was a whole lot there. Maybe it was just a product of, it was written 50 years ago, so maybe it was more shocking back then. But I wouldn't wholeheartedly recommend it, but there are worse ways to spend an evening, I guess. It's the other thing. I read it in about a day or two. It was a real quick read. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know what we're looking at next time. It's a mystery, so you'll have to tune in then. Thanks. We'll see you next time.